Hello Star Wars fans, Mando Mitchy back today, and we're going to be tackling a new project. We've got a Vintage Kenner Imperial Shuttle that has some problems. I was able to buy this at a local auction, and always wanted the original. I had like the 2006 Saga with the weathering on it. I went ahead and sold that because, fingers crossed, we'll end up getting a screen accurate, like a HasLab style. I'm hoping in the next few years we'd have like those 4 seats and some big massive awesome thing. And you know, just a guy can only have so many Imperial shuttles in his collection. So I knew that I wanted to keep this one. So this thing, you can see it's got some issues. The wings don't operate correctly. It's missing a couple of things. We've got one of the wing guns missing, one of the front guns, and the rear gun is missing. The ramp is complete. The canopy, which is a lot of times I see these listed, it is complete. The stickers are in nice shape, so we have that. The side compartment, that is good. The center wing, I think, is just kind of off there, but it sits pretty straight. But you can see that wing mechanism is messed up, which is very, very common on these things. So we're going to get into this. We're going to see if we can get it repaired. I was able to find OEM wing gun and OEM rear gun, so I'm still looking for that front gun. I do have some 3D printed ones that I can put on there temporarily. I think I'll just these things, if I remember right, you actually have to disassemble that to get it off. So I'll make that to where it's just maybe blue tacked on. That way I can actually get the right one on when I'm able to get that secured and find that part. But yeah, I don't know if the electronics work, so I want to get batteries in it, and if they don't, we're going to fix that, because my goal is that this would be 100% original, 100% operational when we're done and ready for my display. So let's get into this thing, and I will bring you all along as we curate and repair / restore this thing and get it up to standards so that it can be in my Vintage Kenner display. And I think, you know, to me, the only way, and once we're done with this, the only way I'd probably ever maybe get rid of this one is if I was able to really get the grail. I mean, a shuttle is a grail item anyway for most of us, but if I was able to get this box complete, then maybe we'd let this go, and maybe not. Maybe I'd keep this and just have a box complete one as well. But anyway, let's tear in and let's see what we got here. Okay, in this shuttle, you'll see behind this, where the rear thrusters would be, that's where your battery compartment is. And one of the things that you can tell, the 2002, 2006, like the FAO Schwartz and the other, like the Saga line, they don't have electronics, so they're not going to have this button. I had one of those, and if you flip this down, there's nothing here. So if you have a non-electronic one, then you know that it's not the original Vintage Kenner. And if you do have electronics, the way I understand it, it's definitely the Vintage Kenner. So with the batteries in, these are known good batteries. We'll hit this button, and you hear there's nothing. So, which is not uncommon on, if you've ever did any restorations on the Vintage Kenner ships, the more often than not, the electronics don't work. So one of the good things is I can hear the switch. It sounds like it's clicking, making some good contact. And inside this compartment here, there's not really a lot of corrosion. There wasn't batteries left in. I have found on a number of these things, as I get in there, you can just see the corrosion and the battery acid had leaked. Like, I guess probably the toys are put away in an attic, basement, wherever, closet, and batteries are left in and just decompose and cause all kinds of problems. So yeah, this did not have batteries in it, and no corrosion as far as we can see now. So as we get inside of this, we're going to go ahead and, once we identify the mechanical issues, once it's disassembled, we'll identify the electrical issues as well and get a good game plan as far as what we need to do next. Okay, on the electronics on this Vintage Kenner Imperial Shuttle, we could see we had no corrosion. Everything looked good there, thankfully. That's not always the case. The switch seemed like the contacts were making connection there, and as I got in here, I verified that was the case, and the motor was not spinning there. So there's a little paddle that fits on that gear. So basically, this is just no function other than to make noise. So what you do on this is have known good batteries, make the connection at the switch, and then just to start to spin that motor to try to get it to free up. So basically it just gets burnished, or I wouldn't say corroded, but tarnished inside there, and doesn't make connection inside that motor, and it won't run. And once you can get it started, it usually sounds terrible, and I'll kick this on. I don't know if the audio will pick it up very good, but this one doesn't sound good. So we're going to go through and do some work with that. But thankfully it did start to work. I've never had one I can't get to work yet. From my Sandcrawler, my X-Wing, and all the ones that I've done so far, I've been able to. But I haven't dealt with a ton of corrosion, moisture, or anything like that. So I'm sure there are some out there that are beyond repair. But this one worked okay. So I'll show you what it kind of does. And I apologize, those batteries with that battery cover off do not want to stay in. So you can see that gear spins, and that paddle contacts that gear, and that's where you get that kind of that real fast clicking sound. And you hear this motor is squealing a little bit. It sounds like the bearing is dry in that. So what we're going to do is try to lubricate that. I'm going to try to do it without taking it completely apart. Many times you can get in and do that, and what I have found, most people that know far more than me recommend sewing machine oil. This is an all-purpose lubricant, very lightweight. We don't want to use very much, but it usually comes with a dropper already on the bottle. A couple drops that we can get work down inside that motor is really going to lubricate that up and set us up for, there goes the battery again, set us up for the foreseeable future. So I don't keep my batteries in anything that I have, just because I don't want to take the risk of them corroding. But usually, my goal is like every year, you're changing batteries, testing stuff to put batteries in, run through the electronics, make sure everything works. And I think that's a good practice. So let me get this in here, and we'll come back and I'll show you what that sounds like next, and what I found on the rest of this as I did the disassembly, and kind of what my plan is going back together. So the squealing, kind of the dry bearing sound is gone, and now we get that electric motor and that kind of that Kenner sound that they typically have from that electric motor. So yeah, and let me show you, let me get a pointer and I'll show you where I put the oil in. And this is not hard to do. This one is a tougher than maybe the X-Wing, not as hard. The Sandcrawler, the Vintage Kenner Sandcrawler, was really tough to get to. So but yeah, let me show you how I did that, and then we'll continue on. So I've got it propped up here so we can get a little better vantage point. And I'm going to use my snap-on pick. So on this end, you'll, very in the center of the motor casing, you'll see a round shaft that spins. That's one end of the kind of that armatured shaft that goes through the electric motor. And then this other end, you'll see where the gear and that flap is. So what I did was, holding it up, basically I put a couple drops of oil in there, held it up. I moved the gear just by hand a little bit, let it work itself back and forth, and give that oil a minute to kind of work into that motor, because that oil is very thin, very fine. It's going to wick and seep its way into that motor. And then I put the batteries in and kick it on, and did the same thing then with the bottom piece. And honestly, after I did when I did the I don't know, the top piece or whatever with the gear, when I did that, it was running okay, but it still had a squealing sound. When I lubricated the back side, or the non-geared side where the electrical contacts come in, then it really quieted down. And then so I would say and continue on. So one of the things that I'm going to be doing next, I'll show you guys on the wings what I did. There was actually nothing broken in here. I think the gears, it had jumped teeth and was out of time and was not working right there. But I did have the supporting repair pieces that I got for this. So I'm going to go ahead and put those in. I think it's a good idea. It's just going to make it more robust and less likely to break. And then the other thing that I'm going to do is I'll kind of document some of this too, but this thing is it's just dirty. It's just got, 40 plus years of dust and dirt and grime on it. The stickers are really, really nice for its age. So I don't think I'm going to do anything. I'm going to avoid those with anything damp. It's not yellowed. There's really no reason to go and to brighten it or to go through any of that. I think it was probably stored in a box away from sunlight, so it looks really, really good as far as that goes. And the other thing, it's like, this is what I would call road rash. So this thing, as it saw some play, and we see this on the Kenner figures, it has markings and no damage, just scuffing and whatnot. So I'm going to go through with a magic eraser and some cleaners and get as much of that cleaned up as I can and just detail this thing out. So looking at progress here, I wanted to show you a little bit. I spent a good little bit of time cleaning this thing up. So yeah, a little bit of elbow grease and some hours invested. You can see all those marks. Really, pretty much, I can't say that there's anything that I wasn't able to get off. So that turned out really nice. And this is the first shuttle that I've taken apart to this extent. And before I showed you that electric motor in that kind of that whole piece, this thing slides right out. So that would have been way easier to work with. And that, so just keep that in mind. You don't have to keep that in the whole piece. It would have been way easier to lubricate and demonstrate and everything that too, as I was showing you how to get that going on that classic Kenner motor that was stuck. So let's talk about the wing repair. So as I got into this, the wings didn't operate in a synchronized format. The one, it was just kind of weird. It was kind of jacked up and wasn't operating right. I did have had a 2002 like Saga side series, and that my wings on that were good, and that. So I knew how it should feel with the release on the handle and as it folds up. And I'd done some research, and there's some good tutorials out there on this, and the common things that happen, you'll get in and you'll see that these pieces right here, where that geared piece connects to the squared piece and then the tabs, that's what ties the gear mechanism as it releases and folds and unfolds to these teeth, and that connects with this geared piece. So you'll find some breakage in there, and then additionally, from what I understand, you'll find where these slotted pieces are, that's where this spring sets in. So you'll see that slotted piece that fits into that whole piece, and actually this is what I would consider a return spring. So it lets gravity fold the wings down, but then as you're folding them back up, you've got a return spring helping bring even pressure. So as that gearing, those wings have to go down, come back up together, and then there's return springs. So if this breaks, you lose the spring on one side or the other, it's going to be out of kilter and be a real issue. So what they've done is, I don't have anything broke. I think that, I'm guessing, until I go back together, I'm guessing what had happened is someone had got rough with this, jumped the teeth, so we were multiple teeth off, didn't fold up right, and from there they just was like, it's broken, whatever, and they just kind of quit playing with it or whatever. I'm not sure. Maybe in storage it happened. Somebody didn't know how to fold the wings up and they just forced it up. I'm not sure. But my thought is, while I'm already apart, it doesn't have to be broken to put these reinforced pieces in. You're not altering anything from the vintage Kenner state of the things. Basically, you're just reinforcing pieces. So what they do is they make these pieces. Now these slide in and basically are just going to be a little more reinforced piece for that spring to sit in that slot. So that's going to help where those aren't going to break as easily, I would assume. So that's one part. And then the second part, you can see that I've got that over here. This piece slides in to this and fits in there. Those tabs line up, and then that slides in there. So basically, you've got another robust piece in this that allow that to grab onto those back tabs and this center piece, so that it actually distributes the force to more than just certain individual pieces. So I'm going to go ahead and assemble it like that. So To recap, we've got the electronics working. We've got it cleaned up. The one thing I am going to do, the stickers on this thing look immaculate. I'm so happy with that. The cockpit, the glass looks really good. I mean, it's a little bit of scratching, but not bad compared to a lot of things that I've seen. So I think we're good there. And all this stuff just cleaned up so nice. Very minor, like little spots where maybe it's yellowed a little bit, but nothing that I think that needs treated or anything like that. So I think we're going to go back together. But the one thing that I did want to do, there is one sticker that's starting to peel slightly. So what I'm going to do is show you the method that I use, that I've learned from watching restoration tutorials of reapplying an OEM Kenner sticker. So let's do that before we get too far into the assembly process, and I'll show you that as well. So you can see what I would call, these are maybe dog-eared, would be the right term, but inside the kind of the hulled back from the cockpit on this main section, and you can see just the corners, and that's how it starts with stickers. Those start to peel off, and if I can salvage the originals, I've always tried to, and sometimes you can't. Sometimes they're too far gone, but I do collect the old stickers. If I can get them off and have to do a whole new set, I'll keep the old ones just so I have them. So if I want to go back with an original restoration sometime, that I can do that. So what I do, and what I found works well, is just your run-of-the-mill glue stick. So this is something that I sourced at like one of the dollar stores here in my area in the Midwest. And what I'll do then is I'll take just a regular Q-tip, and I'll saturate that glue stick on that, and then we'll work that in, and I'm sorry, it's hard to do this, down in that recess on both of those ears. And basically we're going to get that, that glue kind of saturated in there to some degree, and let's put some pressure. You'll see a little bit of wear on the corner after you're done, but it's hardly noticeable. So I'm going to do that real quick, and we'll see what that looks like afterwards. All right, so I did that application process, and you can see a little bit of the wear on those corner pieces, but they are attached. So, you know, depending on the person, I would rather have an OEM sticker that I've reattached if I can. But if the whole thing was trashed and you had to go new, that's okay too. So, but yeah, so that was just typical, just a cotton swab, the glue stick, and being very careful, and then cleaning up the residual glue once you're done. And that, in my experience, those corners won't come back off. It won't get any worse. Now, some of the rest of it might start to peel because that adhesive just deteriorates as time goes on. And I was just doing the math. This thing's a 1984 stamped, assembled, and created piece. So I think that if my math's right, it's 2026 now. It's like 42 years. So that's a long time for a sticker to last anyway. So we're just trying to preserve this, and this is a piece of history here. So, and I will say, you know, so I don't forget later on, we're going to go ahead and go back to start the reassembly process now. And one thing I will say is, as you are looking to buy one of these, we're all different in our ideas on collecting. And a lot of people will tell you, you know, hey, buy a complete one. And that's, you know, there's a lot of wisdom in that, because when you start buying, say you buy this and it's missing the canopy or the center wing, or, you know, all the guns and all this and that, well, all of a sudden you've paid $75 to $100 for an incomplete. When you start pricing that stuff, my goodness, it is remarkable. I need one front gun, and I was looking for this guy, and I'm just blown away about what those things are going for. So, you know, what I'm probably going to do is, I have a 3D printed one that I've got the file for that. I can 3D print that. I'm going to pop it on temporarily, so it does look complete in my display, and then I'm going to be on the hunt. I want to find one that doesn't cost me an arm and a leg, and I found the other pieces, so it should be fine. And this stuff does come along. So I'm one that I'll buy a piece of junk. If I could buy one of these that's just shredded, you know, not worth anything, for something in a lot, then I will, and I'll have pieces for the next one that I go in and work on. So depending on the type of person you are, if you're okay with 3D printed parts, you just want one for your display, then maybe an incomplete one is good. If you want, I'd really like to be original, then maybe, look at that. But when you're buying the pieces that are missing on this thing, it becomes expensive, from the ramp to the canopy. Well, my other one that I had, I bought it, I think I really bought it right, because it came out good when I sold it. But it was only missing the canopy glass. The canopy was on, the glass was missing. I paid $50 for the glass, just for the glass. And to make one of those things, man, it is, I don't have the skill set to do it. So just keep that in mind when you're pricing that out. Say, hey, I could buy a complete one for $250, $350, whatever, depending on what I just sold a complete 2002 or 2006 one, complete, for $200, and it was nice. Didn't need anything. So if that's okay for you, or if you want the Vintage Kenner one, this one with the electronics does run a little bit more. So just weigh those options when you're deciding what to do. I bought this at a... All right, here is the finished product. So I am very happy with how this turned out. So you can see those wings are much different than they were. Sorry for the glare from the window there. But yeah, so this thing really turned out just as good as I could have hoped for. So all the kind of those markings and all that stuff from its time as being played with all those years ago, all that's cleaned up. The wing mechanism works great. As we kind of went through the electronics work. We're all back. Original Kenner stickers, original Kenner parts, except for this front cannon right here. So that is a 3D printed one that I had printed for this, and so I will keep looking for an original front cannon and get that 100% then. And went ahead and we loaded up the pilot seats there with a couple of our Imperials. So those guys are ready to pilot the shuttle. But yeah, so if you don't have this in your collection, man, I would recommend it. I think everybody needs at least one Imperial shuttle. So real happy with how this turned out. I feel very fortunate to have it in my collection. So if you haven't subscribed, please do. Like and subscribe. You'll be notified as I'm doing restorations, building dioramas, just kind of going through cool stuff that all of us Star Wars collectors just love. And I'm just documenting the process. And if you'd like to see as my collection grows and evolves, subscribe and you'll be notified. So thanks for watching. God bless all of you. This is Mando Mitchy. We'll see you next time.